They ignored you, talked over you, treated you like you didn't matter. But one psychological shift can change the way the world sees you forever. In this powerful lesson inspired by Robert Greene, you'll discover the hidden behavior that instantly commands respect without begging for attention, arguing, or trying to impress anyone. The moment you master this skill, people begin to listen differently, react differently, and value your presence. Most people never learn this secret, and that's exactly why they stay overlooked. Watch until the end, because once you understand this, nobody will disrespect you again. Most people believe disrespect begins the moment someone insults them, ignores them, or speaks down to them, but that is only the final act. Disrespect begins long before that in the silent signals you unconsciously send every single day. Human beings are constantly reading one another. They are watching your reaction, your tone, your posture, the way you handle pressure, the way you speak about yourself. And without realizing it, many people teach others to undervalue them. You see it everywhere. A person talks too much because they are desperate to prove their intelligence. Another explains themselves endlessly because they fear being misunderstood. Someone laughs nervously after making a serious point because they cannot tolerate tension. Others apologize for things that require no apology at all. These behaviors seem harmless, but psychologically they communicate weakness, uncertainty, and dependence on approval. People do not respect what constantly seeks validation. The world operates on a law most people never notice. Others treat you according to the value you appear to place on yourself. If you tolerate disrespect once, people remember it. If you constantly need acceptance, people sense it. If your emotions are easily controlled, manipulated, or provoked, you unconsciously hand power over to everyone around you. And this is where most people lose the game before it even begins. They become reactive. They allow anger to expose them. They rush to defend themselves against every criticism. They feel the need to win every argument, correct every misunderstanding, answer every insult. But power does not reveal itself through constant reaction. Power reveals itself through restraint. Understand this carefully. The person who remains composed instantly gains psychological superiority over the person who loses emotional control. When someone insults you and you become emotional, you have accepted their frame. You are now dancing to their rhythm. But when you remain calm, when your expression barely changes, when your energy stays grounded, something fascinating happens. The other person begins to feel exposed. Your silence becomes heavier than their words. This is why emotionally disciplined individuals naturally command respect. They are difficult to manipulate, difficult to provoke, difficult to read, and human beings instinctively respect what they cannot easily control. Many of you have spent years trying to earn respect by being nice, available, understanding, and agreeable. But excessive availability lowers perceived value. If people know they can disrespect you without consequences, interrupt you without resistance, or drain your energy without limits, they will continue doing it. Not always because they are evil, but because human nature constantly tests boundaries. You must begin observing yourself honestly. Notice where you over-explain. Notice where you seek reassurance. Notice where fear causes you to talk too much. Confidence is often not about speaking more. It is about needing less from others. The moment you stop chasing approval, your presence changes. Your words become sharper. Your silence gains weight. Your energy becomes difficult to shake, and people begin treating you differently, not because you demanded respect, but because your behavior quietly made disrespect expensive. The world studies your standards before it decides your value. Once you understand that disrespect begins with the signals you send, the next step becomes mastering the one thing most people completely lose control over: their emotions. This is where true power begins. Not in aggression, not in loudness, not in domination. Real power begins the moment you stop allowing the outside world to control your inner state. Look carefully at human behavior. The average person is predictable. They react instantly. Someone criticizes them and they become defensive. Someone disrespects them and anger explodes across their face. Someone ignores them and insecurity takes over their mind for the next 3 days. Their emotions are constantly being manipulated by external events, and because of this, they remain easy to control. The calm individual is different. When a person cannot easily disturb your emotions, they begin to feel your strength without you saying a single word. Silence, in particular, becomes one of the most dangerous psychological weapons you can ever develop. Most people are terrified of silence because silence creates uncertainty. They rush to fill empty space with nervous talking, unnecessary explanations, or emotional reactions. But the individual who is comfortable remaining silent immediately appears more grounded, more confident, more powerful. Think about the people throughout history who commanded attention the moment they entered a room. Often, they were not the loudest. They were not speaking endlessly to impress others. Their power came from control. Every movement was measured. Every word had purpose. Their silence forced others to lean in and pay attention. This is something deeply psychological. Human beings associate emotional discipline with strength because it signals stability. If your emotions constantly fluctuate, people unconsciously perceive you as weak, unstable, and reactive. But when you remain calm under pressure, you create an aura that is difficult to challenge. Now understand this carefully. Emotional control does not mean suppressing emotion completely. It means refusing to become a slave to emotion. Anger itself is not weakness. Fear itself is not weakness. Weakness occurs when those emotions control your behavior. The dangerous person is not the one who shouts. The dangerous person is the one who can remain composed while everyone else loses control. And this is why silence becomes so powerful in moments of conflict. Imagine someone insults you publicly, expecting an emotional reaction. They expect you to defend yourself immediately. They expect your anger. But instead, you pause. You remain calm. You look at them without rushing to respond. Suddenly, the psychological dynamic changes. The tension shifts onto them. Your composure exposes their lack of control. Most people never experience this level of discipline because they spend their lives reacting impulsively. They speak before thinking. They reveal every emotion instantly. They allow temporary feelings to create permanent consequences. And then they wonder why people do not respect them. Controlled emotions create mystery. Mystery creates authority. Authority creates respect. When your words become fewer, they become heavier. When your reactions become calmer, your presence becomes stronger. People begin studying you more carefully because they cannot easily predict you. And human beings are naturally drawn toward those who possess self-mastery. You must train yourself to pause before reacting. Slow your emotions down. Observe more. Speak less. Let people reveal themselves while you remain centered. Because the person who controls their emotions controls the atmosphere around them. The quieter your mind becomes, the louder your presence speaks. Now, after mastering emotional control, you arrive at another dangerous trap that destroys respect more quietly than almost anything else: the addiction to validation. Most people never realize how much of their behavior is driven by the desperate need to be liked, accepted, approved of, and praised. It controls their decisions, their personality, even the way they speak. Watch people closely, and you will see it everywhere. Someone changes their opinion depending on who is in the room. Someone laughs at jokes they do not even find funny because they fear exclusion. Someone says yes when every part of them wants to say no. Others spend their entire lives trying to avoid disappointing people, not understanding that this behavior slowly erodes their identity. The more approval you seek, the less people truly respect you, because approval seeking sends a hidden message. My value depends on your acceptance. And the moment people sense this dependency, the balance of power shifts. Human beings naturally respect individuals who possess an internal sense of worth, not arrogance, not ego, real self-respect, the kind that does not collapse because someone disapproves, criticizes, or walks away. This is rare because most people build their confidence on unstable foundations: compliments, attention, social status, relationships, or public validation. But external validation is temporary. The crowd changes constantly. One day they admire you. The next day they ignore you. If your identity depends on their approval, you will spend your life emotionally enslaved to unstable people. This is why so many individuals tolerate disrespect. They fear losing connection more than they value themselves. They remain in unhealthy friendships, toxic relationships, humiliating environments, because deep down they believe rejection would destroy them. So they perform, they please, they sacrifice authenticity in exchange for temporary acceptance. But there is a cost to this behavior. Every time you betray yourself to gain approval, your confidence weakens internally. You may fool others for a while, but you cannot fool your own mind. Somewhere deep inside, you know when you are abandoning your standards just to be accepted. And over time, this creates resentment, insecurity, and emotional exhaustion. The powerful individual understands something different. Not everyone needs to like you. In fact, trying to be liked by everyone is one of the fastest ways to become forgettable. People respect authenticity far more than performance. They trust individuals who are willing to stand by their values even when it creates discomfort. This does not mean becoming cold or arrogant. It means developing independence from constant emotional approval. When you stop needing validation, your behavior changes naturally. You stop over-explaining yourself. You stop chasing people who ignore you. You stop shrinking your personality to make others comfortable. You stop feeling the need to prove your worth every 5 minutes. And ironically, this is often the moment people begin respecting you more. Why? Because confidence is attractive when it is quiet and self-contained. The person who does not beg for attention often receives the most attention. The person who is comfortable alone often becomes the hardest to manipulate. There is strength in emotional independence that cannot be faked. And understand this carefully. The world will test whether your confidence is real. People will disagree with you. Some will misunderstand you. Some will dislike you simply because you stop making them comfortable. That is part of growth. Respect is not built by avoiding tension. It is built by surviving it without abandoning yourself. The moment you stop needing everyone's approval, you become impossible to control, and that is when your real power begins. Once you free yourself from the addiction to validation, something important begins to happen. You stop living entirely for the comfort of others. And this naturally leads to the next lesson, the necessity of boundaries. Because without boundaries, all the confidence in the world eventually collapses under pressure from people who constantly test your limits. Human beings are always observing what they can get away with. This happens in friendships, relationships, workplaces, even within families. Someone interrupts you repeatedly. Someone speaks to you with subtle disrespect disguised as humor. Someone takes your time, your energy, your attention without consideration. And many people tolerate these behaviors because they fear conflict. They believe keeping peace is more important than protecting themselves. But when you avoid necessary confrontation, you quietly train others to disrespect you. This is one of the hardest truths people must accept. The world does not simply respond to your words, it responds to the standards you enforce. You can talk endlessly about self-respect, but if your actions communicate weakness, people will trust your actions more than your language. Weak boundaries create invisible invitations for disrespect. Now understand this carefully. Boundaries are not loud. They are not emotional outbursts. They are not dramatic speeches designed to intimidate others. Truly powerful boundaries are calm, clear, and consistent. The strongest individuals rarely need to threaten anyone because their behavior already communicates consequence. When someone crosses a line, you address it directly, without anger, without over-explaining, without begging for understanding. This is where many people fail. They either remain silent and resentful, or they explode emotionally after tolerating disrespect for too long. Both extremes weaken your position. Power exists in controlled firmness. The ability to say no calmly is one of the greatest forms of self-respect you can develop. Yet many people struggle with this simple word because they are terrified of disappointing others. They want to appear helpful, agreeable, easygoing. So they overcommit, they sacrifice their time, they tolerate draining behavior, and eventually they become emotionally exhausted because they have built a life where everyone has access to them. But access to you should never be unlimited. The moment people realize there are no consequences for disrespecting your time, your energy, or your values, they begin taking you for granted. This is not cruelty. It is human nature. People instinctively push against boundaries to discover where the limits exist, and if no limits exist, respect slowly disappears. Think about the individuals you deeply admire. Often, they possess a quiet sense of standards. They do not tolerate everything. They are kind, but not weak. Respectful but not submissive. They understand that protecting their energy is not selfish. It is necessary. You must become comfortable with disappointing people occasionally. This is part of maturity. Some individuals only appreciate you when you constantly sacrifice yourself for them. The moment you establish boundaries, they accuse you of changing. But what they truly miss is unrestricted access to your time and emotional energy. Do not confuse guilt with wrongdoing. There will be moments when protecting yourself feels uncomfortable. That discomfort is natural because many of you were conditioned to prioritize other people's feelings over your own dignity. But the individuals who command lasting respect understand that boundaries are not walls designed to isolate others. They are filters that determine who deserves access to your life. The quality of your life is shaped by what you allow. The moment people realize your standards are real, their behavior changes automatically. Your presence becomes stronger. Your words gain weight, and those who once underestimated you begin moving more carefully around you, because respect begins where tolerance for disrespect ends. Once you establish boundaries, something fascinating begins to happen. People start sensing a different energy around you. You become less available, less emotionally predictable, less desperate to explain yourself. And this naturally creates another form of power that most people completely misunderstand: presence and mystery. We live in a world where everyone reveals too much. People expose every emotion instantly. Every opinion, every insecurity, every plan, every reaction is placed on display for the world to consume. They speak constantly, hoping attention will create importance. But paradoxically, the more people reveal, the less impact they often have. Human beings are drawn toward what they cannot fully understand. This is a psychological reality that has existed throughout history. The individuals who command attention most naturally are often those who leave space for curiosity. They do not constantly explain themselves. They do not chase attention aggressively. They do not feel compelled to reveal every thought in order to feel seen. And because of this, people become intrigued by them. Mystery is not manipulation. It is restraint. It is understanding that your value increases when your energy is controlled rather than scattered everywhere. Most people weaken their presence by overtalking. Nervousness causes them to fill silence endlessly. They reveal too much too quickly because they crave comfort and validation. But powerful individuals understand the value of measured communication. When you speak less, people listen more carefully. Now, this does not mean becoming cold, distant, or antisocial. Presence is not about silence alone. It is about intentionality. Every movement, every word, every reaction begins carrying more weight because it is no longer careless or impulsive. People can feel when someone is deeply grounded within themselves. Think about the moments when you have encountered someone truly confident. Often, they did not need to dominate the room. Their posture was relaxed, their eye contact steady, their speech calm and deliberate. They were fully present, and because they were fully present, others became more aware of them. Presence is rare because most people are mentally scattered. While speaking to you, they are thinking about how they appear. While listening, they are preparing their next sentence. Their minds constantly seek approval, attention, and stimulation. But the individual who has mastered themselves develops a different quality: stillness. Stillness unsettles people because it communicates certainty, and certainty is powerful. This is why controlled body language matters more than most realize. The way you walk into a room, the way you hold eye contact without intimidation or insecurity, the way you pause before speaking instead of rushing nervously. These subtle details shape perception instantly. Human beings judge energy long before they analyze words. And here is something even deeper. People respect those who appear emotionally complete within themselves. If your behavior constantly communicates loneliness, desperation, or hunger for attention, others unconsciously sense dependence. But when you appear comfortable in your own space, your presence becomes magnetic. The mysterious person is difficult to manipulate because they are difficult to read completely. Most people reveal themselves too quickly because silence makes them uncomfortable. Learn to resist this impulse. Allow people to wonder about you. Let your actions speak louder than endless explanations. There is enormous strength in selective expression. Not every opinion requires sharing. Not every insult deserves a response. Not every detail of your life deserves public exposure. The less predictable you become, the more carefully people observe you. And once people begin studying your presence instead of overlooking it, respect follows naturally, because power is never loud for long. Real power becomes unforgettable through control, precision, and restraint. The rarest people in the world are not those who demand attention. They are those who never need to ask for it. At this point, you begin to understand something most people never fully grasp. Respect is not a trick. It is not a performance. It is not something you force from others through intimidation, aggression, or constant demands. Real respect is built slowly through the life you create and the person you become. Everything we have discussed, emotional control, independence from validation, strong boundaries, presence, restraint, all of it ultimately points toward one thing: self-mastery, because in the end, people do not deeply respect words. They respect consistency. They respect discipline. They respect individuals who carry themselves with purpose even when nobody is watching. Look around at modern society. Most people are distracted constantly. Their minds are scattered. Their habits are weak. They chase short-term pleasure while avoiding discomfort at all costs. They want confidence without struggle, respect without discipline, success without sacrifice, and because of this, they remain fragile, easily shaken, easily influenced, easily disrespected. But the individual who develops themselves daily becomes different. There is something powerful about a person who wakes up with purpose, a person who controls their impulses, a person who continues improving quietly while others waste years seeking approval and attention. Over time, this creates a kind of internal gravity. People feel it immediately. You no longer need to convince others of your worth because your life begins speaking for you. This is why discipline is deeply connected to respect. When you cannot control your own habits, emotions, or focus, life controls you. But when you develop discipline, you create stability within yourself, and stability creates confidence, not fake confidence built on appearance or social validation, real confidence built on evidence, evidence that you can trust yourself, evidence that you can handle discomfort, evidence that you can survive challenges without collapsing emotionally. That kind of confidence cannot be faked. And here is something important many people avoid hearing. Respect often requires solitude. Growth changes you. The moment you stop tolerating disrespect, stop chasing approval, and stop shrinking yourself for others, some people will become uncomfortable around you. Some relationships may disappear entirely. Why? Because many people prefer the version of you that lacked boundaries and certainty. Do not fear this transition. Every powerful transformation requires losing the identity that once kept you small. There comes a moment where you must decide whether you want temporary acceptance or lasting self-respect. Few people choose self-respect because it demands responsibility, it demands discipline, it demands patience. But once you build your life around purpose, instead of approval, everything changes. You walk differently, you think differently, your energy becomes calmer, stronger, more grounded. You stop wasting time trying to control how everyone perceives you because you are too focused on becoming someone valuable. And strangely enough, this is often the moment the world begins respecting you most. Because people instinctively admire those who are moving towards something meaningful, not loud people, not attention-seeking people. Focused people understand this deeply. The strongest individuals are not obsessed with proving themselves. They are obsessed with building themselves. Every day becomes an investment in character, discipline, intelligence, health, emotional control, and purpose. And over time, this creates an aura that cannot be imitated. You no longer fear disrespect because your worth is no longer dependent on the opinions of unstable people. And that is the final lesson. The world may test you, challenge you, underestimate you, even attempt to break you. But the moment you master yourself completely, something extraordinary happens. You stop needing the world's respect because you have already earned your own. And ironically, that is when the world finally gives it to you. They laughed at you, ignored your opinions, interrupted your words, and made you feel invisible. But after today, that ends forever. In this powerful psychological lesson inspired by Robert Greene, you'll discover the hidden behaviors that instantly command respect, silence manipulation, and make people think twice before underestimating you. This is not about aggression or fake confidence. It's about mastering the silent traits powerful people use to dominate every room without raising their voice. Once you understand these psychological laws, your presence will change completely. Watch carefully, because one mindset shift can make nobody disrespect you again. Before you leave, remember this: respect does not begin when people finally recognize your value. It begins the moment you recognize it yourself. The world will always test your confidence, your patience, and your boundaries. But once you master your emotions, stop chasing validation, and build true self-control, your entire presence changes. People can sense strength that is real. If this message spoke to you, make sure to subscribe, because the next lesson may completely change the way you see power. influence, and human nature. And from this day forward, never allow anyone to make you forget your worth.